Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. We're super happy to have you guys here. We will discuss today global benefits for remote and distributed teams, how to attract and retain the best talent in the world by providing top benefits. So today, the agenda will be that we will have a poll here in a second. Charles, who is helping me in the back end with the tech stuff, will put up some questions for you on the screen. Please choose the question that is more pertinent to your organization, and we can see kind of like the makeup of this group. Therefore, we can steer the discussion towards what is most applicable to you. Then we will go into our panel discussion where I have the invited companies to give us a little bit of their background as well as their thoughts in the space. And then we'll leave plenty of time at the end for Q&A. So please get your questions ready. And it'll be more fun towards the end where we can answer all of your questions. I try to answer all of them by the end of the webinar. And if anything is unanswered, we will address them in a follow-up email. So without further ado, Charles, if you can pop up that poll, those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so you should start seeing the poll populate on your screen here in just a moment. I'll read it off, but go ahead and take about a minute to get your question or your answers in here. Is your organization borderless? Select one of the following. No, and we do not have plans to become borderless. No, but we want to become borderless in the future. Yes, we are in 2 countries currently. Yes, we are in 3 to 5 countries currently. And the last one is yes, we are in 6 or more countries. We'll give you all another 15, 20 seconds here to get your answers in. Looks like we've got 70% voted so far.
This is cool.
10 more seconds.
71%, 72, 73, 75.
Cool. Go ahead and close it up here. Then I'll share the results on the screen. So I'll read them off, and then Lona, I'll kick it back to you to talk about it. Is your organization borderless? 10% of you said no, and we do not have plans to become borderless. 17% of you said no, but we do want to become borderless in the future. 12% in 2 or more countries, 24% in 3 to 5 countries, and then 37% in 6 or more countries. So majority are in 3 or more countries. So almost, let's see, 61% of the people here today are in 3 or more. Looks like 73% are borderless currently. Lona, I will hide the results here and then kick it back to you.
That's really cool. I think this is the most, I guess, distributed webinar and attendees that we've had so far, which makes me really excited. We've been doing these webinars for, I think, over 6 months now, and we've had quite a few of them. They've been a huge success, so I really hope that we can address some of your questions today. So without further ado, I will go in and introduce myself. My name is Lona Aliyah. I am the head of revenue here at SafetyWing. I'm also a Y Combinator founder and an advisor to many different startups, as well as the EU for Innovation. I'd like to think of myself as an original remote worker. I started working remotely right out of college, and that was quite a bit of that ago, when remote work was not popular. I wanted to see all 194 countries of the world, depending who's counting. And I convinced my boss at the time to let me work remotely. So because I was a top performer, he let me do so, but it was seen as an exception and not the rule. And that was really sad because it made me feel like I had something to prove versus trusting me that I'll do the work no matter where I was in the world. And long story short, I made it to 80 countries of the world, lived in 4 continents. I learned 7 languages along the way, and I continue to love remote work, and I am spreading the word, if you will. And SafetyWing, what are we? Who are we? We are building a global social safety net for remote workers and distributed teams. What that means is that we offer these cross-border benefits, including remote health, which is a fully equipped health insurance that covers remote workers and teams in over 185 countries. As you know, the logistics of managing different plans can be a nightmare if you have people in different countries. We basically make it super easy, one plan, one price, one dashboard. So the opportunity is that remote work is here to stay, whether some of us like it or not. 70 to 90% of office workers said that they don't want to return back to a physical workspace full-time. This was a recent study from Stanford Research, and I don't blame them because remote work is pretty awesome. I wanted to go into maybe the top 10 benefits of remote work, and maybe you guys can let me know in the comments if you want me to go into that. It takes about 5 or 10 minutes, but I just didn't know how much time we'll have and wanted to introduce the panelists as well as go into some questions. But if you want to see the top 10 benefits that remote teams ask for, I can go and show you guys pretty quickly. So maybe if you do want to type a comment in the chat or in the questions, just let me know now. Otherwise, I can do it at the end too. Oh, yes, please. Okay. So Matt and Basil, just hold on 1 second. I will just go and show quickly this. Okay, so this is really exciting presentation. I don't get to do this very often, but really traditional benefits like ping pong tables, free beer Fridays, and bring your pet to work day are irrelevant for remote workers. And as a remote first company, we interviewed dozens of other remote teams, and here are the findings. The benefit number one that remote teams love is location independence. So allowing and encouraging your team to work from anywhere in the world is really one of the best benefits that you can offer to your team. Myself, for example, I will live in 5 different jurisdictions this year. I was talking to Matt and the other people on the panel and telling them where I've lived this year. So it's been really cool to kind of be based wherever I feel like and not feel bad about living the best life that I can possibly live. Remote benefit number 2 is minimum vacation days, and not just unlimited PTO. What I mean by that is that in Silicon Valley or in other places, a lot of companies say, hey, we have unlimited vacation days. However, if the founders don't really take any vacation, most of the company doesn't take that unlimited vacation either. So it becomes no vacation kind of policy all of a sudden. I used to live in Silicon Valley, started my company in Silicon Valley, so I know very well how toxic that culture can be. And here at SafetyWing, for example, we instituted 20 days of minimum vacation, and that's basically 4 weeks. And the cool thing is that the founders also take their vacation, and that really sets a great example. Benefit number 3 is paid team gatherings in cool destinations. So this is really awesome if you're a remote team. You want to meet the other people in person, maybe once or twice a year. We have 3 to 4 team gatherings a year, and the last one was in Slovenia just last week. It was fantastic. It brought together 50 of us in the team. I hadn't met anyone in person since I started over a year ago, and it was really the best thing that the company could have done. We came out of it with incredible ideas, super excited about the things that we want to create, and really it made all of the difference. Benefit number 4 is a personal self-development budget. This could be courses, it could be coaching, it could be books like Audible. We have all of this available to us, and it's pretty awesome. We can really improve ourselves in whatever way we feel is best. A stipend for the home office, so you can have a tech setup or paid internet, co-working membership. I know the guys at Panther will tell us what they offer, which is pretty cool. So this is really great. Another benefit is like maybe a CPA for tax season, because if you will have all of these remote workers in different places, they might need some help with taxes when it comes to living in different jurisdictions. Benefit number 7, which actually is the #1 requested benefit for remote workers, is health insurance. So something like health insurance that covers them, whether it's a hospital visit or a doctor's visit. It's really important because you want to make sure that your team is healthy, comes back to work on time, and is productive and is taken care of. Benefit number 8 is to have some kind of a retirement plan or pension plan. This would be really cool so that they can ensure to have this essential income even when they retire. And we're working on a product like this. Benefit number 9 is to give them all the tools and technologies they need. We love Notion, TeamFlow, Loom, and Slack. Basically, it helps us do our jobs so much better. And finally, where I'll introduce our guests, is that in order to hire the most passionate people out there and most capable, you can now do this with platforms like Panther, for example. And Panther allows you to hire anyone compliantly in over 150 countries. So that means that you don't have to worry about how you're paying them or whether to set up a subsidiary in another country. You can just set them up on the platform, super easy. It takes a few minutes, and you can hire the best people in the world, really. So you don't have to hire just within your radius. You can just go in Timbuktu or Madagascar. So having said that, I will go back to our panelists and have them turn their video on so that they can introduce themselves to you. Vasil and Matt.
Hey, Lona.
Great. Yes, if you guys want to say a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go into the Q&A where I'll ask you some questions, and then we'll also get some questions from the audience.
Sure. Thank you for having us. As a quick introduction to Vasil and I, we're both the co-founders of Panther. I'm the CEO and Vasil is our CTO. We started working together a number of years ago remotely and fully distributed. I live in Tampa, Florida, and Vasil lives in Skopje, Macedonia. And we were part of a fully distributed team before it was cool. Long story short, we realized that the hardest thing about building a globally distributed team is the bureaucracy and the red tape and navigating the crazy maze around global employment laws and payroll and benefits and all these types of countries and jurisdictions. So now we work every day to make it really easy for companies to work with exceptional people from around the world and let their employees work from wherever in the world that they're happiest. So thank you, Lona, and the SafetyWing team for having us.
Sure thing, Matt.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Vasil. I'm the co-founder. I'm a co-founder at Panther and a software engineer at heart. I've been in the tech space for about 10 years. As Matt said, like we had a previous startup where the whole team was distributed and working fully remotely. So we firsthand kind of experienced the nightmare of global compliance, payroll, and the worst one of them all, taxation. So we came up with Panther as a way to help a lot of companies avoid those issues and basically have smooth sailing and set up a remote workforce where they would attract the best talent.
Awesome. Okay, great. So then with the three of us here, we'll kick off with some questions. I wanted to first start talking about the greater topic of attracting the best talent. So maybe the people that are on here, maybe they have companies that are growing, they're hiring people. A question that came up in previous panels was, how do I find pools of talent? Are there certain sites that you would recommend? Great resources? Matt and Vasil, would you like to comment?
Yeah, Vasil, feel free to take this one.
Sure. Yeah. So we, once we got to our, like, I'll give you a bit of background. Once we go to our series seed round, we opened the doors to fully remote, meaning like we wanted to attract ourselves talent from all across the globe, and we utilized sites like Angel, We Work Remotely, and a whole bunch of other websites which you can Google and find online. But those two, like, we got a lot of good candidates from those two places, and the level of talent has been overwhelming. Like the majority of our engineering team right now is comprised of people that we've never met, that just randomly applied through one of these websites, and going through like what we consider to be a very rigorous interview process, they ended up being like a great addition to our team. So if I have to speak from experience, I would say that for us, it's been mostly like Angel and We Work Remotely, even though there's like a whole bunch of other great websites out there that provide the service.
I also think there's so like that is more like the obvious, like first glance, is there's these remote focused job boards and communities that we love. But I also think there's more of a non-obvious answer here, which is let incredible talent from around the world find and discover your company. And the only thing that you need to do is be very clear on your careers page that no matter where people are, if they are the best person for the job, you are really excited to work with them. And so we've had a number of candidates just find us naturally and apply on our careers page like anybody local. And that has basically really changed the trajectory and the caliber of our team. So open your doors would be my advocacy there.
Those are really great answers, guys. We would say the same. But also, yes, we post our jobs in all of the different remote job boards like Work, EW, Remotive.io. There's quite a few different platforms out there that are fantastic. And if you follow me on LinkedIn, by the way, I do give a lot of advice in terms of like those, where to start, what job boards to use, and anything in general about remote work, just because I'm so passionate about it. Cool. So then what are some things that I should do to make my organization more attractive to global talent? I guess, Matt, you answered this in some way, but where you said like in your careers page, make it clear. But maybe should I offer benefits? Is that something that a lot of companies ask you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the foundational work, what's required, is offering a first-class employment experience. So, giving the individual an experience that they would otherwise have with a local company. So somebody should be making contributions to their Social Security, their healthcare. You should offer great private benefits, these types of things. I think the harder part that this kind of new generation of companies who are being started remotely are still working on today is how do you make an operating system within your company for fully distributed work. So how do you make it so that, I'm here in Florida and one of our engineers, Jamil, is in Azerbaijan, that we can collaborate efficiently together. And so I think that involves basically reorganizing how a company works. It's less meetings that require people to have to be online at the same time and in Zoom all day, and more things like documentation. And you mentioned, like Loom videos, which are fantastic, just asynchronous ways of communicating, I think set the foundation for people from all over the world who are on whatever time zones they're on to be able to work efficiently and collaborate with one another without any hiccups.
Mm-hmm. Basil, did you have something to add, or is that good?
No, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Also, I tend to agree with that, and also what I know is that in the next 10 years, I believe it's going to be an employees market. So there's going to be incredible competition for companies to find and hire, attract, and retain the best talent. So therefore, you have to provide great benefits, and not just health insurance, but other things that I mentioned on that presentation, and even more interesting things that are coming up from conversations I'm having with other thought leaders in the space, where people now can they're on social media, they're more educated than ever, they're more interested than ever, so they're learning a lot and they know their worth. So it's really hard to hide that. And also, it's not going to be just like you hire people based on pay. You have to really offer more than just pay. A great mission and vision, of course, needs to be there, but also treating people fairly. And I'm very much onto this point where, treating people well, will really help them stay in your company. And I see this with myself, where I have so many other options to do anything in the world and start other companies and get pinged by other companies constantly. But because of the culture we've built at SafetyWing, I just love coming to work so much that when I put all of that into balance, I don't want to risk, going for another culture where I would hate working there because, it could be toxic or it's an anxious culture, like those types of cultures, like I don't want to be part of. Yeah. And we've taken great care to build an amazing culture where it's really, cool and calm. And I just love that, coming from Silicon Valley, where it's like go, 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 die at the end. I don't know, it's crazy.
Well, one more benefit I want to throw out there is, while we're all working remotely, at Panther at least, we go out of our way, we try to ensure that all of employees have an incredible working environment. And so we give everybody a few $100s per month that we call a remote work stipend that they can use to create a dream work environment. And maybe for some, that means a seat at a co-working space. For others who maybe want to work at home, that means coffee subscriptions, a housekeeper, the internet bill, whatever we can do to make them happy. And then I just want to like double click on, you mentioned this earlier, but like incredible retreats. I think that great remote working companies understand that it's a balance where people should be distributed, let's say somewhere between 90 and 99% of the time. But for 1 to 10% of the time, people should get together to break bread, to make hard decisions, and to have, difficult discussions that I think are very valuable for companies.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think also another question that came up at another webinar was if you think the distinction companies make in their treatment of long-term contractors and full-time employees makes sense in a global marketplace. So take it how you would, Matt, if you want to answer this question.
Yeah, I mean, I think for a while now, we've seen many companies who are working with people in other countries go the kind of non-compliant second-class route of calling everybody international contractors, even if their relationship with the company is not some external service provider, but they're an internal part of the organization. They either manage other people or they have managers. They work full-time for the company. If they were in the same city or country, they would be listed as employees. And so like how we perceive that as Panther is, number one, that's just plainly non-compliant and a huge risk to everybody involved, because what the company is essentially doing in that case is they're avoiding paying employer-related taxes. So it's tax evasion. You don't want to mess with that. But number two, like the reason why this happens is often because it's very difficult to get set up to actually employ all around the world. And so you end up settling for this, let's just pretend they're a contractor, what we call in the industry shadow employment. And so not to be too salesy, I won't talk too much about Panther, but like we have our own infrastructure in over 150 countries so that you can employ compliantly and give a first-class employment experience to everyone everywhere. So our perspective is, look, if you remove location for a second and you're working with someone who is an internal part of your operation and you consider them, an equal teammate like anybody else, they need to be an employee. You should be making contributions to their Social Security and healthcare and these types of things. If you're offering your other teammates benefits, you should be offering them great benefits. Location should not be a factor there. And so that's part of what we're inspired to do every day, is to break down borders in those senses.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And everyone can have equal opportunity to be able to have a great job. And then that remote work makes that happen.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Okay, yeah.
Last quick point, sorry, to think about is like, double emphasizing on that experience for the person misclassified as a contractor. Because they're a contractor and not an employee, it means that they have to do all their own tax withholdings. And when the bill comes, a lot of times they're usually screwed. It means that the banks and the credit unions don't recognize that they have stable income through employment. They just see them as a freelancer, and so they may have a poor credit score that affects their ability to get loans and a home and a car and these types of things. Again, nobody's making contributions to their Social Security and their health care. They're responsible for it all, so it can be quite expensive. And they don't really have any protections that normally come with employment. You can be let go on any day's notice with no unemployment. So we believe that, particularly with Panther coming into market, that companies are going to be forced by the world's best talent to offer them the experience that they deserve. And if you truly want to recruit, delight, and retain the best in the world, you can't go the quick, non-compliant second-class route.
That's really great. And I think that what you guys are doing, is fantastic to help companies be able to do this. Like in the past, this wasn't possible. You have to set up subsidiaries, it'd be very complicated. And now as more and more companies are starting out, they are all pretty much remote and they can just hire anybody with a click of a mouse. That's great. So in terms of how should remote first companies estimate salaries? This is like a big question in the remote sphere, because we saw that Facebook and Google are like, well, based on where you're located now, we will adjust your salary. How do you guys think about that? Do you have a stance on the salary side, or what should people be paid?
Vasily, you want to go?
All you. We've had arguments around this one and very long discussions, so I'll jump in, don't worry.
Please, yes.
It's a tough question, because if you isolate specific perspectives from the company perspective, they're thinking, and to be clear, when I'm talking in isolation, I'm referring to selfish perspective. So we'll talk about all of them and then hopefully find good cohesion between them. From the company's perspective, they're thinking if you can, for lack of a better word, live like a king in a particular jurisdiction for X salary, why would we pay you 7X, or I don't know, whatever. In theory, they're seeing that they don't need to. From an individual's perspective, they're saying, look, I'm providing a value, right? And where I live and what I choose to buy, or how I budget, really is not the company's business. And so those are two very extreme polarizing perspectives. I think Panther's opinion here is that employment and collaboration and companies should be win-win scenarios for everyone involved. Meaning, what we care about when we are collaborating with new teammates on offers that make sense for them and us is we just want to make sure that everybody's happy, that the teammate that we're hiring, is incredibly happy with their compensation plan, whatever that may be. And different people may have different expectations, that's okay. And that Panther is getting a tremendous amount of value for bringing on and getting the privilege to work with this individual. Because if you pick one of these two extremes, which is we're only gonna, take the highest salaries, the San Francisco salaries, which are ridiculous, and we're gonna pay them to everyone like that, I don't know how much sense that makes. That's very expensive unnecessarily. On the other side of things, if you pay people solely based on where they're based, you end up with really tricky situations. For example, what do you do when an employee starts in San Francisco and you pay them their ridiculous San Francisco salary, but then they move to Macedonia or Korea or whatever? Do you then say, okay, yeah, or vice versa is even trickier. You give someone you double their salary because they decided to move. And so we try not to pick any one of those two extremes, but just speak to the person that we're interested in working with about what their compensation expectations are, and offering a best-in-class experience. We also think that equity is the great equalizer here. If you end up working with an incredible company, the real opportunity is getting what you're worth in terms of ownership of what you're building. And so for that, we have absolutely it does not matter where you are in the world at all. Everybody gets a healthy piece at Panther, because when we continue to build this incredible company, we want everybody to appreciate as a result.
Yeah,
And
if I
actually,
can just,
sorry, go ahead. Actually,
yeah,
just with this point, Celine, which is in the audience, or Gallant Celine, she also said that shares in the company are very, very important, which is something that I did not put in that top benefits, and I should put that there. It should definitely be one of the top benefits, is the shares in the company, for sure.
Without a doubt, yeah.
Vasil?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to say, just speaking from experience, because we went through literally hundreds and hundreds of applications and interviews in the past few months. We were putting together some of our engineering team. People tend to be very rational in terms of salary expectations and compensations, even though they might go above, they know their value within their local country and everything else. I just want to say, like, they're not greedy. There's not like nothing there that, screams like this is insane or whatever. So as long as they're happy, and if they're making more than whatever the average or the at the top of the bar salary is within that country, that's perfectly fine. That's one way also to ensure, retention from employees. Because what happens if a competitor comes in and they just offer 10% more to whatever you're paying?
So that is a great point, which is I do think that remote work and the infrastructure that Panther is building can act as a great equalizer for economic opportunity around the world. I apologize because I'm blanking on the study, but I saw something that said, like, over the last 6 months, the engineering salaries in India have risen up 50%, which is wild, but also very cool to see. So ultimately, as companies are able to finally give opportunity and have the privilege of working with exceptional people from around the world, the demand for that talent rises, and inherently we'll see global salaries overall move closer to a fair middle ground.
Yeah, I would say that my personal opinion is that you should pay someone for the value they bring to the table. So very close to what you guys think. And it's not about where they live, it's the value that they bring. And if they bring you that value, then it's worth it. Of course, within reason and within what the, let's say, people in the industry are being paid at a certain range. Otherwise, exactly, they'll be open to competition. And I saw that in my company, my startup, where I was paying one of our engineers not that much because we couldn't afford it. We didn't have that much funding to afford it.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
So that
reason
he offered 10x,
you don't have enough money in the bank, especially when you're starting out. So there needs to be some sort of compromise. You either balance that out with equity or something else, or
But yeah, at the end of the day, then I couldn't be too upset because he was making 10x more at the other company. So I had to be okay with that. But that's why, if you're a startup founder, you need to make sure you raise a good amount of money so that you can pay people what they're worth. And that way you can attract also the best people, because it won't just work just on equity. Now people want, both, and it's more competitive than ever.
Absolutely.
Very cool. So maybe in the meantime, I would like the audience to start entering some questions because we have just 20 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we address some of the questions that you have, because usually everyone comes up with really great questions. I want to make this more interactive versus us sitting here telling you guys what we know from being remote workers. Great. Okay, so maybe another interesting question that came up on a previous webinar is, how do your businesses currently handle different time zones? So, like, do you do more asynchronous work? Do you do more synchronous? How do you maintain the product workflow? Do you believe that globally distributed employees should be restricted to a specific time zone? Cool.
No, absolutely not. Okay, so the assumption of why you would go like either fully remotely or start hiring remote workers, employees, is that you're trying to get like the best people for the job. That usually means that whenever you hire someone who is the best person for the job, they have a certain level of professional professionalism attached to them as a character. Meaning, and I'm gonna make a point, trust me, meaning that they should be allowed to make decisions when they work, and that they're gonna get the job done and hit the milestones, goals, or whatever else has been agreed in conjunction with the rest of the team. So I don't think that anyone should be like, should have like a webcam on top of their heads, seeing how many keys they enter per minute or whatever, if we're talking about developers, but they should be left again to their professional discretions, and you should trust your employees. It's what you hire them for.
I agree, and I think that the hardest part about doing this, because to be very blunt, working with people across all sorts of different time zones is more difficult. It requires more work than working with people on the same time zone. But number one, like I think the easiest thing to talk about here is we should just completely, we at Panther completely disagree with the idea that you need your 8 or 9 hours of overlap with everybody else on your team. Like, no, absolutely not. Like, if anything, you need an hour or 2 hours of overlap for you to sync, but like everybody's got to do their work, you know what I mean? Like everybody's got to be productive and have their focus time anyway. But I think that the hardest thing about building a distributed team across a number of different time zones is knowledge management, because something that's very difficult is when you want to tap someone on the shoulder and they're sleeping. Like, I get it. Again, that's harder. So that requires more work. And specifically, like I want to bring up a point around knowledge management, because the ability for everybody in the organization to have access to all the information necessary allows them to execute quickly and make smart decisions. So companies want to be fast and smart. So if you don't have good systems in place, that's where remote teams run into problems. And so I think I want to highlight 3 things that we should aim for. You want to make company information easy to update, easy to search for, and basically easy to access. And so I saw that one of the tools that SafetyWings like to use is Notion. Notion is great. We at Panther love a tool called Almanac. That has a lot of workflows specifically for distributed teams around sending things for review and approval and this kind of stuff. But document is truly the operating system for distributed teams to be able to have access to that info and make great decisions. So you don't need all that overlap. And while that's harder, again, what it allows you to do is work with the best person on the job who may be in a different time zone. But what an unlock that you can do that and others won't be able to because they won't put in the work.
That's awesome. Yeah, at SafetyWing, we believe, is in asynchronous work, but also having 2 meetings a week, which are good for 2 hours. So basically Mondays and Thursdays, 2-hour meetings, and that really helps us get the whole team together. The only thing with this is that it's harder for the Asian time zones. It means that you have to be up at like 11 to 1 a.m. So it's really quite tough. So it's not very well suited for the Asian time zone, just because everyone is US, European, kind of like time zones, as well as Latin America. And it's tough to make all 3 time zones kind of coincide within a couple-hour period. But yeah, it's cool that we also do that, where you can work whenever you're most productive. You don't have to like Slack right away. You don't have to respond to a Slack within seconds. Otherwise, the boss will think that you're not at your desk. I just don't believe in that culture at all. I have a team of 14 people, and I just trust them that they will do their work, and they do. And I see it in the output. And if the output is lacking, then I will address that person. But we trust first, and then we obviously, if we need to adjust, we do that later. But we're not about checking anybody. And I think it's important. Yeah.
I think that's such a great point. The idea of focusing on output instead of input. It's not about like the number of hours that you spend in front of your desk. It's about what did you accomplish. And so that's how we operate at Panther, is very much like output focused. Are you proud of what you put out there? Are we proud of you for what you put out there? But a lot of companies who take just like typical office management techniques and have just tried to copy paste them to the remote work environment are struggling, it kind of reminds me the idea of managing by like, you want to see everybody's computer and like be able to make sure that they're working. Kind of reminds us at Panther of a prison where the guard is going cell to cell to make sure that no rules are being broken and that nobody has a cell phone under the mattress. I think in this kind of new generation of working, you want to hire exceptional people that you trust. You want to judge them based on their output, and you want to empower them. This is the type of management that will succeed. You want to empower them to do their best work, plain and simple.
Awesome. I think it's time for some questions because we have some great ones here. Charles, do you want to read maybe some of them? And Charles is helping us in the back end. Cool.
Yeah, we have some really fantastic questions coming in. So I'm just gonna start from the top and start. Actually, I'm going to go to this one first because I feel like it's really relevant right now. And then I'll go through the list here, but feel free to get your questions in now. We've got about 16 minutes left in today's webinar. So we've got about 5 questions in here so far. Okay, so this one I thought was really good because Matt was actually showing Lona and I how his platform at Panther works earlier. And so this is a really great question. Do employees employed by Panther or other compliant platforms receive any health-related protection? So I thought that was kind of an interesting question because you kind of showed us how it works in your platform earlier. So maybe speak to that a little bit, Matt.
Yeah, I think it's two different levels. So number one, you're getting real employment as if you were employed by a local company. And so depending on your jurisdiction, in most places, the company would be making contributions to your public health insurance, as well as other benefits, unemployment, things of that sort. But then in addition to that, like huge props to SafetyWing for making it very easy for companies to have international healthcare plans specifically built for distributed teams. Is on our platform, it is just one click for companies to opt into an incredible private healthcare plan. We've got a standard and a premium one. It's powered by SafetyWing, and the cool thing about it is that you can say, like at Panther, we're a premium private healthcare provider, and we cover it for all of our employees. And candidly, part of that is because it's very affordable. It's not that expensive. And so no matter where we hire, everybody knows that private healthcare is just something that they don't have to worry about. Medical problems should not be financial problems. And so we just want to make sure that everybody's covered as much as possible. And so, yeah, it's super easy in the Panther platform. You've got your public statutory benefits, but then you also have, in a click, companies can provide great private options as well.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, there's another question that came in, and maybe Lona, this one might be more directed to you. Can you speak to global insurance options?
Global insurance options, sure. It's quite easy with SafetyWing because if you do have a company with multiple people in different locations, it can be a nightmare getting different insurance policies per country. So at SafetyWing, we've made it super easy where a company can set up their, let's say, dashboard, and they can add anybody they want as they're coming in or they're leaving, and they just pay one price for the whole team, and it's much easier versus having to deal with local providers. So yes, we are the only ones that have solved this thus far, and we're having great partnerships with people like Panther, where if you use their platform, you can also add people to the SafetyWing policy through their platform. But if you have a giant company where you need to set it up for yourself, you can also come to SafetyWing and we'll set it up for you on the dashboard. So it's not a problem. They can use it in any country they're in, or if they travel, which is cool, which many policies don't let you do that. So if your people are nomadic, if they're remote workers, they're going from Italy to Macedonia to Albania to Greece, they'll be covered. Otherwise, if you had an international policy, you'd just be covered in the country where you reside, and then maybe for like a few day travel, but not like for months of stay if you're traveling around. Cool.
Great. I'll move on to the next question. So going back to the topic of company equity and giving employees equity in the company, one of our guests here today asked, Are shares in an organization interesting for US based workers, and under what conditions, and kind of how do you set those share plans up?
Can you repeat the first part of the question again? Are shares interesting to US employees? Is that what it was?
Yeah, yep, exactly.
Yeah, I think the answer is most definitely yes. If you're building something compelling, you know, and you want everybody to not just, you know, work because they have to, but work because they have upside, a shared upside, then equity is very valuable, not just for those individuals, but for the company as a whole to share. And in terms of how providing equity across global team works, basically I don't know how technical it makes sense to get, but yes, you can provide equity to anyone in any company, in any country, sorry, through the Panther platform. In fact, one of the things that we're most proud of recently is we were recently funded by Carta, both the CEO, Henry Ward, and Carta Ventures. And so we make it really easy for companies anywhere in the world to distribute equity across their global teams, because we do think it's super important.
That's really cool.
Thank you.
Didn't know.
Thanks. All right, I'll move down the list here. All right, so what happens to inter-country employment laws when we talk about hiring talent around the globe, like setting up company, payroll, and such?
Okay, the question is, what happens to inter-company employment law? By that, are we talking
inter-country employment law?
Yeah, like compliance across countries. How can you
so yeah,
deal with that?
Basically, the way that Panther works, because this is the problem that we solve, is we run a global network of legal and financial infrastructure so that companies don't need their own and they could just tap into ours. So we have local compliance teams on the ground in every country that are sending the right filings to the government on your behalf, that are doing the tax contribution calculations, that are helping with the employment agreements, that are making sure onboardings and terminations are done compliantly. And so I guess to give you a total view of how it would work, if you were to do it the old way, which is needing to set up all this infrastructure just for yourself, it's incredibly onerous, it's incredibly foreign. Every jurisdiction is vastly different. It costs a lot of money, you need local experts, you know, all this kind of stuff. And so our vision for this is that hiring anyone anywhere in the world is just as easy as hiring someone across the street. So in the Panther platform, it's really as simple as, you know, what's the name of the person you're hiring? What would you like to pay them? What is their job? And what country are they in? And we handle literally everything else. And so it's about taking the red tape, removing the red tape from employing great people wherever they happen to be.
That's great. Yeah, we have lots of questions, so this is great.
Okay, so yeah, so the next one, so there's two questions that are almost identical from Anna and Katie here. And so let's see, how do you manage the cultural differences in a multi-zone team? So just across the different parts of the world, how do you manage and build to account for those cultural differences?
And then the other question was how to manage building a team culture with multiple time zones. Okay, the way we do it at SafetyWing is that we do set up time that is pretty much every week. It's 2 hours, as I said, Mondays and Thursdays. It's from 5 to 7 p.m. European time or 11 to 1 US time zone. If you are in Asia, as I said, we try to warn employees that want to come on board that are from Asia to say it's not the best fit, and I think we say it up front, and therefore we don't have as many working in the time zone. We'd love to figure out how to make it work, but we know how to do it for a few time zones. So as I said, anywhere from the US to Europe to Latin America and Africa, we're able to make that work really well, and it's quite great and easy to do so far. We've been able to do a great job. Maybe Matt, if you want to add something.
Yeah, Vasil, I'm popcorning you. You go first, then I'll go.
I'll focus on the question. Okay, so the question is, how do you set up, how do you deal with different cultures? I think it adds to a stronger team of sorts. Like we have so many people from all around the world right now with so many different cultures and everything else that goes with it. And you have to take, okay, so let me backtrack for a second. You have to take into account that for most of these people that are not in the US or Europe or anywhere else, maybe from their point of view, some of like the US culture, company cultures or whatever are as foreign to them as some of the stuff that we encounter might be foreign to us, let's say. But it's again, speaking from experience, it's been an amazing journey, like where we learn about all these different cultures and incorporate some great aspects or stuff that we like. We learn about our employees, what makes them tick, how they perceive different different issues that we have, different challenges within the company, and everyone just is able to bring in part of their culture through all the problem solving skills and everything they add to the table within an organization. So it's a difficult question. My response would be like, keep an open mind. It's a two-way street. You know, it's challenging for them as well, as much as it might be for you to work with like someone with a 6 or a 9 hour time difference halfway across the world. So yeah.
I think it's about embracing the beauty of diversity. We have a lot of fun, like getting to know people from different cultures, working with, like it's beautiful. Number 2 is having fun, get-togethers. So, for example, on a weekly basis, and it's optional. We all of these types of, like if we do a meeting, it's like mostly optional because we allow people to watch the recording or whatever. But we all get together and we do what we call internally Panther Playground, and we basically play games and bond and like all this kind of incredible stuff that we now do once a week. I think in the near future, our team is now large enough where we'll do it 2 or 3 times a week at different time zones. And again, it's totally optional. It's like people pop in when they want and just get to hang out with one another. I think in-person get-togethers are really important. But the last thing that I wanted to mention in terms of like what companies get out of building a culturally diverse team is, many of us who are building software companies are selling to people all over the world. And so it allows you as an organization to be closer to your customers. And appreciate from those insights. So an incredible story that I can tell in 60 seconds here is that when Facebook was going into the Japanese market, I'm pretty sure it was Japan, all they thought they needed to do was translate everything to Japanese and everybody would love it and start using it. They were very wrong. People did not like Facebook when they just translated everything. And it wasn't until they hired someone local that they understood that the Japanese people, again, excuse me if I'm getting this wrong, I apologize, is that they really cared about different types of information about people. So they cared about things like blood type instead of birthdays and things of that sort. And so once they modified Facebook to be more locally, culturally appropriate, it started skyrocketing. So we're all building, as software companies, we can sell to people all over the world. We should be diverse because we want to be like our customers so that we can build the best companies possible.
Perfect, thank you. We've got 2 more questions here, so we'll just kind of rapid fire these ones. Lona, this one's addressed to you. Which countries are currently covered by SafetyWing in terms of health insurance? Is it limited to EU and US, or other countries are also included?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can answer that quickly. We cover 185 plus countries, so pretty much everywhere in the world, including the US, EU, Latin America, Africa, all over Asia. There's only a few that we don't cover, and if you go to remote health on our website, you can type like the North Korea, Iran is not covered. So a few countries that are not covered, but pretty much everything else is. That's the beauty of it. It makes it super easy to get everyone onboarded.
Thank you. All right, so we'll wrap up with this last question here. We've got 2 minutes left. When writing internal policies, how do you make an effort to keep it equitable across borders? So, for example, paternity where it isn't offered by the country, but it is in another country.
Rapid fire. Go ahead, Lona.
Sorry, is that maternity or paternity leave?
Yeah, yep. So that was the example they gave.
What we offer is that we give mothers 4 months in addition to what the country they live in gives them. So let's say they're in Germany, they give them a year, we give them 4 months extra pay on top of that. So it's very, very generous. I think fraternity is probably the same.
Wow, that is very generous and exceptional. That's awesome. Typically, what we guide companies to do is to create a kind of cross-border benefits plan that they're very happy with, and then if particular jurisdictions require that they offer more, then that would be an exception, and those individuals would get what's mandated by the country.
Yeah, that's a interesting and tough question. I think a lot of companies are trying to figure out now how to address that. So if you're like a newer company, you probably don't have the answer yet. We just figured out the answer after 3 years or so being in business. But yeah.
Very cool.
All right, we'll wrap on that question. So Lona, I'll let you
great.
finish things off.
Yes. I want to thank Med and Vasil for joining us, and also everyone that attended and asked great questions. Thank you so much. You will get the recording afterwards. Any questions that weren't asked or on the panel, we will also address them afterwards. Maybe Charles can copy and paste them and send them around to us. Thank you, everyone, and see you at the next webinar. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Ciao.
Bye.